practical way. More practical cannot be formulated. Bashy, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you to the organizers that they gave me this possibility to present my heartfelt views. I'm very known to speak from my heart, much less from my intellect, which is lying somewhere. But I have always done that from my heart, and somehow I find that when you speak from your heart, people listen more. People actually accept what you say. Whether they agree or not, that's a completely different thing. And I also know that Iqbal Academy in Denmark, which I know, has done a lot of good work, not only in introducing and presenting Allama Iqbal to the Danish public, and also among a special section of Pakistani community, which I am also part of it. And for that effort, Iqbal Academy and its organizers should be absolutely appreciated and commended. And of course, IKS and Lizzie, who are known for many, many years, and CEIT, also should be thanked for joining forces with Iqbal Academy in bringing Iqbal's message to a wider public and audience in this country of Søren Kierkegaard. Having said that, it is also vital to state that I am absolutely not an Iqbal expert. For that, we have many younger people there on my left. Nor I am a passionate reciter of his poetry, as many Pakistanis are. But in this meeting, we are lucky to have many eminent Iqbal scholars and poets of repute. I was, however, fortunate enough to be blessed with a father who was an educationalist and an Iqbal lover. Through his writing, translations, and talks, I learned what I could in my teens. As an observer of the society's development and as a human rights campaigner, I look at Iqbal from a humanistic perspective, and his message as a mean to bring the social change around us. Iqbal himself mentioned that in his introductory statement to his famous book, Secret of the Self, in these words. He said, "Poetry is not the purpose of this book, nor is beauty worshipping and love its aim. Mine is a fire-tempered song." Coming back to the topic at hand, how can Iqbal's message be useful to present-day Muslim youth in a practical way? We need to define in a very non-emotional and in a matter-of-fact manner three things. First, what is Iqbal's message? Second, who are the present-day Muslim youth? Third, what are the practical ways we can utilize Iqbal's philosophy and poetry in solving today's problems? Let's start with Iqbal's message. Iqbal's poetry is basically a flame of religious fervor, in this case, Islam's bygone days, the longing to return back to the purity of Islam, its pristine message of action, and the elevation of self to a higher level. The great Indian diplomat, Mr. K.P.S. Menon, wrote in 1925 in a magazine called Indian Review, and he says about Iqbal, Iqbal is a Muslim. His message is intended for Muslims, wherever they live. He has a pan-Islamic outlook and as such knows no bound to the country, tribe, nation, or even family. To Iqbal, Muslims are like a rose with many petals but only one perfume. You can't put better than that. At the same time, Iqbal cries that Muslims are dispersed, they are backward, and stranger to one another. Iqbal talked about the reunion of Muslims, a reunion not of flesh, but in spirit, a reunion based on love of the Prophet. It means that Iqbal has a clear solution as to how Muslim reunion can be achieved. He asked for a ruthless self-assertion by shaking oneself free from the corrupting influences all around us. At the same time, he argues that the self-realization can only be achieved in this world, without worrying life after death and by get rid of mullahism. I don't know if Danes understand what mullahism, but I'm sure mullah is equivalent to our priest, but less educated. He has nothing but contempt for the traffickers of religion, what he calls them. Iqbal's fearless self-assertion is obedience to the law of nature, self-control, and God's commands. In the context of Indian Muslim struggle for freedom, Iqbal's poetry did encourage and advocated Muslims to be one nation, but he was also very skeptical of the possibilities there. When he addressed the 25th session of the All India Muslim League in Allahabad on 29 December 1930, he asked Indian Muslims to get rid of Arabism in Islam, because he considered Arabism in Islam full of symbols and ritualistic nature instead of passion and purity of the desert from where Islam started. Now, the question arises, is Iqbal's message universal just because Islam is universal, or we at least think so? Is Iqbal's message of self-assertion applicable today? Because we live in a different time, different space, and especially we who live in Europe live in a completely different society and culture. The answer is that in theory it is possible, but it is an uphill battle in this time and age of consumerism, secularism, and especially Islamophobic atmosphere which has gone berserk and is out of control in the name of freedom of expression. Although, for various practical and philosophical reasons, I'm not a big believer in the idea of a Muslim Ummah, and I apologize for that, which Iqbal talks about, and the present-day Muslim youth are actually subscribing more and more. I have also noticed that through my travels and interfaith work in Europe, that there is such thing called Muslim awareness among youth, and all it needs is direction, logic, vision, and action, and not emotions. Now, Allama Iqbal has addressed the youth several times, directly as well as indirectly. My prayer is that Almighty Allah makes my words for a younger generation, people like yourself, easy to understand. Make my deep sea a shallow crossing for them, and meaning of my verses become clear to them without much effort. So he's directly actually addressing to people like yourself. So what do we have? I think that since Iqbal has many messages for youth, and we are not talking about only men youth, but also of both genders, in his philosophy, poetry, and lectures. So let us use that message to energize that part of the community. That is the first thing we have. Second thing, Iqbal's poetry is philosophical revelations and has universality in certain aspects. We should make use of his thoughts, which deals with human development, social issues, and a citizen's responsibility towards the well-being of the whole society and not only the Muslims. The focus of our discussion should involve Muslims at large, but above all, humanity as a whole. Today in the West, there is a great awakening with respect to spirituality, role of religion, interfaith realities, and, of course, intercultural coexistence. It is partly due to the availability of huge information through internet, coming through social media, interest in Eastern philosophy, and no less the strong visible presence of Muslim communities in USA and Europe and also in Denmark. In my travels, I see that many bookshops are full with books about, for example, Maulana Rumi, Umar Khayyam, Firdausi, Hafiz, Rabindranath Tagore, Krishnamurti, Khalil Gibran, and many, many more. But I have yet to see in my travels in 50 countries in Europe, one bookshop in any airport with a book of Iqbal. The reception and the understanding of the message of these people I just mentioned varies very much, and it varies according to the circumstances, the audience, and the time these messages were delivered. Place of the origin and the complexity of the language also played a large part in the somewhat restrictive universality of those messages coming from the East. But its essence remained intact. The love of the Creator by the creations, common heritage of humanity, one destiny for spirit, rebellion against the status quo, whether it is political, religious, or societal, and of course, questioning the entrenched interests of normality. They are very valid, and they're very timely, and they're very universal. But what I have seen, heard, and experienced is that people in the West are now tilting towards which appeal to their heart and not so much to their intellect. Unfortunately, Iqbal is found only in some libraries, special interest bookstores, and in the homes of Urdu and Farsi-speaking elite. This limited visibility of Iqbal's message is not due to the message is wrong, or there's something wrong with the message, but the insufficient promotion of Iqbal by those who do read, who understand, and who admire, but somehow are restricted in their own efforts to promote Iqbal. It may be due to the lack of financial resources, it could be to the lack of grasp of necessity, and also maybe, and I apologize before saying that, maybe of their own limited vision of what they want from society. Here I can mention that very few Iqbal lovers in Denmark actually know that even in Denmark we had a professor, Jespersen of Copenhagen University, who was the first Danish intellectual who wrote about Iqbal and who was even honored by the Pakistani government. I don't know how many of you know that. I think our friend Iqbal expert here, Mr. Nasser Malik, he actually told me, I didn't even know that. The third point is that the intellectual level of work done on Iqbal in the West appeals to very limited group. To make it global, or at least Western, the experts should revise their efforts and look at Iqbal from a new angle, which would appeal to the common man's humanity. It has a more universal appeal and is translated in various languages with easy following discourse. Because you can translate a great philosopher or poet in such a language that nobody understands. So there is no sense in translating that. Translation, interpretation should be such that it reaches to the common man. Like for example, in Denmark, you see how many Danes even read or less understand Søren Kierkegaard, but everybody knows about Jose Anderson because the language is different. Another point I would like to make is that religious aspect of Iqbal's message should include that part of religion which fulfills people's socio-economical needs and not only spiritual or religious needs. For example, there is a debate going on among many Muslim groups in Denmark if they should vote in the national election. Naveed Beg, who's a young imam, has written a very beautiful article in Qureshi where he explains in detail what Islam's position on democracy and participation is. But that is only read by a very particular readers. So, then the question comes in the end, how to move forward with Iqbal's message? That is what you were asking me, right? Since Iqbal's message is directed towards the Muslims primarily and also Muslims of yesterday, and of course we can also talk about today, it is also their duty, our duty, to explain it to the wider public in a non-exclusive, according to the realities of time, language. The first thing we can do is the work on Iqbal should have two-pronged strategy. A well-meaning and an already aware group to a large extent should continue as it is. For example, Iqbal Academy. This good work should, however, be extended to a wider audience, both among Pakistani youth as well as Danish public, and minority groups like Iranians, Afghans, and Indians. And I was really very pleased when I was in Istanbul a few months back for a lecture that a Turkish intellectual came to me. He asked me, "Do you know Iqbal?" I said, "Well, I don't know him personally, but I know who he is." And he was actually so much entrenched and so much in love with Iqbal, and he said, do you have some books in Turkish language? I said, "We don't even have in English language so many, it's difficult." But, that is a proof that his message is there and there is a hunger, but we are not supplying those people that water so they can drink it, And this good work should, however, be extended to as I said before. Now, this can be done by seminar like this, conferences, cultural arrangement, and of course, debate evening. This debate can be societal issues, culture and literature, as well as religion and morality. It should not just stop with about Iqbal and his philosophy, but also extend to the whole debate which is going on in the society. The second thing is youth who are well-versed, and many of them who are sitting here go to universities. They're well-versed in languages, and they should take part in public debates in the newspaper, blog, Facebooks, and internet. Yesterday, at 4 o'clock in the night, I saw on the Facebook something which Iram wrote. Iram is here somewhere? Yeah, Iram is sitting there. And I was a little sad, She was complaining that what is happening in the society, and she's tired of all this debate about Islam and Muslim, and maybe just give up, or not take part in that. And I'm very happy that my answer to Iram was, no. It is now exactly the time when you should speak up, when all of youth should speak up. Because my generation, I'll be 70 soon, we will be gone in 10, 15 years, and you will be faced with the same problem which we were facing in 80s and 90s. And if you give up and others give up, nobody's going to take this challenge up. So you will be in deep, deep problem. So, and there is also a huge amount of discussion taking place where they can contribute, like Tariq did the other day, not only from a religious angle. Remember that it's not about Islam or Muslim. It is also how we live in a society and how we actually act or interact with the society, which is important for us to put and emphasize. But also from a common sense and societal point of view, which in my opinion is very important and timely. I notice and I see many young people standing on the street talking about Islam all the time. The only thing they talk about is Quran and namaz and keeping beards or headscarf. Beautiful. But for heaven's sake, Islam is much more than that. And our problems are much bigger. So those people who wants to talk about that, enlarge, because that is what the Danish society wants you to do that. And to achieve the maximum outcome from the available talent, young and old, female and male, Iqbal Kabli can make, in my opinion, some sub-working groups to deal with the specific issues. That will make it more purposeful, engaging, and even better research. And I have a list of topics because, as I said before, if you only will want to talk about Islam and Quran and Hadith, believe me, Europeans and Danes are not interested in that. It's not their reality, it's not their need, but what they are interested is, I have, through my own experience, a couple of topics, for example, which is being discussed in today. Should Muslim communities obey the local laws and tradition or not? What are the Sharia laws, and can these be modified, amended according to the time, local requirements, and the new interpretation of that? Is Islam as a religion compatible with Western democracy ideals? Or is Western form of democracy any place in Islamic systems? Human right in Islam is a subject, nobody talks about that. Is it a fiction or is it a reality? Why not we talk about that? Then a topic which I work with and I know is very, very actual, that is about Islamophobia. I very seldom hear any young person writing any chronic in any Danish newspaper about the issue of Islamophobia and how it manifests in the Danish society. I have yet to see that, What has happened that people understand that we are facing with a very concrete problem in the society. And then you have, and you hear again that Islam was spread by sword. This is a very widespread conception in Europe and in Denmark. Challenge that, and make people understand that Islam is not a religion of sword, it's a religion of conviction and understanding and love, like Christianity is. And then there is a big debate going on in Denmark that Quran teaches violence, extremism and war, and everybody is a jihadist now. And why are we not explaining to the Danes that these terms are totally way out? This is our duty to do that. It is not anybody else's duty. So, to conclude, I hope I'm okay with the time. To conclude, Allama Iqbal wanted youth to be efficient, up and doing, tough and resolute. He was totally despaired of the old generation. He impinged his hopes on the young generation like yourself, who could be made to unlearn before they learn Iqbal. And this is why he prayed with utmost sincerity and tenderness of feeling in one of his couplets. He says, "Grant the youth my sighs of early morning, furnish again these tiny eaglets with strong wings. My only prayer to you, my Lord, is that the light of my vision be instilled in the youth." Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much.